You have to be like open-minded. You have to be explorative. You have to be able to try new things. You must not be afraid to fail. I mean,
Is there any advice that you wish you would have been told earlier in your career?
but I think you should always do what is your passion, right? You have to be passionate of what you're doing, and you have to be also honest to yourself. Are you good at it, right? I mean, even if you're passionate, but you're passionate about something you totally suck at, maybe that's not the right thing.
And if you're talking to a leader who is stepping into a leadership role for the first time, and maybe they are going to have the responsibility of scaling, growing a team, and building a new project, what advice could you share?
It is what it is. You need to take decisions, and sometimes they're wrong, and you have to live with it, right?
And looking back, is there anything you'd do differently knowing what you know now?
In this business, I mean, you need to scale as quick as you can, right?
Hello and welcome to Behind the Blockchain. Today I'm joined by Jan Camenisch, Chief Technology Officer at DFinity. Jan, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, thanks. I'm very well today and looking forward to this podcast.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for joining. So for people who don't know who you are, could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm a Swiss guy, 55 years old, have like 4 lovely daughters, a lovely partner who supports my endeavors here like a ton. I like technology, I like doing research, like solving hard problems that maybe seem impossible to solve. That's why I got drawn into crypto or cryptography rather, because it sort of seems like you do stuff that sort of incomprehensible, but you can still do it. It really drives my life, at least my professional life.
That's great. And so why did you initially take an interest in technology when you first started your career? What drew you to technology?
I don't know, it's hard to say. I guess I grew up on a farm in the Swiss mountains somewhere, and I guess that sort of it grounds you, but also you have to sort of, like maintain your tools, build your tools to some extent. And so I probably just grew up like building, like to build things as an engineer, and then, but I also love math a ton. Yeah, because that sort of at the end of the day brings you into technology, right? You can build stuff. It has a lot of mathematics, and so I think to me that's really the best career I could imagine.
Wow. And can you talk us through your career journey so far, please?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I really grew up on a farm, like working a lot in nature and all of that. So I guess I like that, building things, and then now thinking about like what I should do in life. I knew I loved mathematics, but then also like studying mathematics, sort of at least I thought at the time would mean you end up as a teacher or maybe like insurance mathematician, stuff like that, which didn't really seem all too likable. So then I ended up studying electrical engineering, which is more like building and but using all the math skills. And so I did that, enjoyed it, but then also like worked as an electrical engineer for a bit during my studies, and then sort of realized that I needed like I guess more brain challenge. I really need to do research. So that I guess that led me to do a PhD in cryptography, and sort of which sort of again has this both sides, that it's like pure mathematics in some sense and very applied in the other sense. It has like both of these worlds, engineering and mathematics, really come together. And so I was fascinated by that also because you could do, I mean, as I said before, do stuff that maybe seems funny to do. Like if you think about zero knowledge proofs, that I guess now in the blockchain space has become very popular. It takes you a while until you really comprehend what that means, that you can do something without really doing it, kind of thing, right? How can I convince you that I'm over 18 without telling you my birth date, that kind of stuff, right? And zero knowledge proof do that, right? And then there's like, I mean, cryptography is full of examples of protocol that do sort of these things, right? That allow you to do something that is secure, but can't be abused. Sort of, it always seems like a paradoxical thing. You cannot really do it, but then it turns out you can do it. That really fascinates me. So like building this kind of problem that you bang your head around or against, and then when you come up with a solution, it's very rewarding, right? You crack that problem, and so
Yeah,
that's really what I love doing.
that's great. So how did you end up working at DFinity? What drew you there?
Yeah, I mean that's like an interesting twist, maybe if I think about it even now. Like my career in some sense was always really straightforward, right? I mean, I guess the first decision was, do I spend my life on the farm? Do I keep the family heritage or not? But then I sort of decided, well, now I really want to do something mathematical. But from there on, it was sort of straightforward mostly, right? So you study, realize, okay, now you know do research, you do research, and you realize, okay, you do a research career. I ended up first of all spent a year at Aarhus University, being the assistant professor there, but then went to IBM Research again, spending I think 18, 19 years at IBM doing research. So in some sense, very straightforward. Once you decide you do research, that's the research career, right? And then like the whole crypto happened, where crypto no longer means cryptography, but really like cryptocurrency, blockchain, and so on. And that opened a lot of opportunities. And then at some point, DFinity reached out, right? And then like to me, IBM, this big thing. I mean, on one hand, very corporate, but on the other hand, of course, IBM Research is quite different. You don't feel the corporate, well, you feel it in processes, but then like what I did there, essentially did whatever I wanted mostly. But it's more the security that it gives you, right? And DFinity, like a startup. When we first talked, I mean, there were like 17 people, and like I had some sleepless nights, but then at the end of the day, did the jump. So I thought that 19 years at a very stable environment were probably enough. And yeah, here I am now at DFinity, enjoying challenges, enjoying building tech, like probably having the best time of my life in many ways.
Great. And how did you make the mindset shift from working in a massive beast like IBM to then working in a much smaller startup? Was that a bit of a mindset shift for you? Did you have to go through that process? Did you pick it up quite easily? How did you do that?
No, for me, I guess the change of organization, I don't think that was the hard thing. I mean, I think it's, of course, you can say a big corporation, startup, quite different, much process in one hand, not much processes in the other hand. But I guess I'm not really a corporate guy in that sense, right? I didn't even maybe at IBM follow the processes, and I maybe could get away with that most of the time. So I think culture-wise, for me, that was not the biggest problem. Maybe the biggest surprise was, like you think there's like a startup, certain people, they have a goal. There's like the vision, building world computer. I mean, it's a very clear vision, right? That's a clear goal. You can work it. To me, it was very clear what this meant. And then joining, then there were like, I forget at the time, maybe 10 engineers. But their work, I think, were very disorganized. In some sense, maybe that was a startup thing. But on the other hand, I mean, I guess if you don't get yourself organized, you cannot succeed either. So maybe to me that was sort of the biggest surprise, because I would think, hey, there's a team. I mean, they work all in the same direction, so it should be much more organized. But I think that's just like one of the challenges you see. Like when you form teams, you grow teams first. Maybe first there's like two guys who are organized, and then you add more guys, and then I think as building or scaling up a startup, you constantly have to like watch the growing organization, how people cooperate, how you organize yourself. And I think that's a constant struggle if you try to scale up. And in this business, I mean, you need to scale as quick as you can, right? Because if you just try to grow very slowly, you won't make it. And sort of in some sense, you build the plane while you're already on the runway and full underway, this kind of thing, right? And I mean, it's of course adds much more to the challenge, but it also, like adds, I mean, a lot of fun as well, right? You can really change things, make a difference, have an impact.
For sure. And then once you chose to start your career in research, did you always have an idea that you wanted to become a CTO within a business, or is that something a bit of a
No,
later?
not at all. I mean, like at the end of the day, when DFinity had reached out, the deal was sort of a common, like many other blockchain endeavors at the time, right? If you think about Cardano, they had like a huge, I wouldn't say a research center, but they had like they collaborated a lot with universities and so on. So I guess in Definity said, well, we should have some like a research group as well that looks at the security of the protocol and all of that. Yeah, and sort of my task was to build that research team, and in some sense, a dream come through, right? I mean, so you have some budget, a nice budget, and then you're just there and can call up all your friends and say, hey, let's work on this. Are you ready to join? And like normally in even at IBM research and academic research, also you always have to write this grants for your research and so on and so forth. And here you don't do it; you just get to do the fun stuff, right? Yeah, and I think that of course was very attractive, and so that's like why I decided to do that. That's why a lot of my friends that I called up would also had also joined. It was actually much easier than I had thought. Right, you call them, hey, what do you think? Sure, let's do it. When I had sleepless nights, some of my colleagues and friends, it took them some of them like 2 seconds to decide. It was really surprising and very rewarding and satisfying.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose
But, I mean,
that's what makes it a fun place to be, fun place to work.
yeah, totally. And I mean, if you ask about the role of CTO, right? As I think at the end of the day, again, that was never my goal at all. But then, I mean, a startup is also about like doing just whatever needs to be done, taking ownership, make sure that you succeed. And so I guess first the goal was that the research group would look at the protocol and make sure it's secure. But then like we increasingly realized actually you need to, I mean, if you want to build a work computer, you need to really do that bottom up, security by design, privacy by design, efficiency by design. It's a very technical project, and different from like many other blockchain projects. We sort of are an evolution of Bitcoin, right? Like Ethereum came out of Bitcoin because you said, okay, now we're adding some more contracts to the whole game. Sort of feels natural, and then you replace proof of work with proof of stake. It's sort of all is very evolutionary. Whereas at DFinity, we had rather the approach, let's build this world computer, and how would you do that? And if you think about it, okay, so it has to be a distributed system, it has to be replicated for security and resiliency and so on. Yeah, and so really set out to build that from scratch, right? And then and for many of these things, actually, there are, I mean, nobody had done that before, right? So we actually need to do a lot of like cutting edge research where normally you would do the research, write a paper, it gets published, it gets read by other people. So it takes 10 years until some of these ideas really make it. Yeah. And in our case, like we did the research, and then a year later it was working on hundreds, thousands of machines. That's
wow.
Kind of the deal here. And from that, it sort of becomes natural, right? If you design or if you lead the design of the new features, that at the end of the day, I mean, if you really want to own that, it has to work. I mean, you also have to work with all the engineers and have, you have to own it end to end. I think so. That's how this happened. I mean, it's fun. I enjoy it tremendously. Also, you see the rewards, right? You see, okay, now it's working. It's really, like you have all these machines running that protocol. They upgrade themselves and all of that. I guess we could talk hours about how the protocol actually works, right? It's probably the most complex protocol ever. ever realized. And like we're running this now since 2 years, it has never been down. And like check other blockchains out there, they have been down a ton of time. And we had to fix bugs. Obviously, I mean, it's also, whenever people involved, you make mistakes that happen. But we sort of could operate at the like at the beating heart, and it all worked out. And I'm very proud of the team and myself here that we managed to do that. And there you go, right? So hardly can imagine anything better.
That sounds great. And what skills did you learn throughout your career that have allowed you to perform in the role that you're in now? Is there anything that really jumps out at you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess on the one hand, you have to have like a deep technical understanding and be able to understand very complex problems, solutions. Just you have to be able to deal with complexity and understand quite fast what the gist of things are. I mean, you have to be able to deep dive very, very quickly and and then get back out again and get an overall picture so that you can make decisions quickly. There's a lot of like multitasking involved or like context switching, right? I mean, so you're discussing one part of the protocol with one team, and like half an hour later you're discussing another protocol with another team. And well, of course, overall it's the same protocol, but it's really like big context switches, right?
Yeah.
And you have to do that many times every day for running, like for doing such an organization, because so you need to, I mean, you have a lot of meeting with this team. You need to, in every team, you need to make sure it's like efficient, effective. You take the decisions that need to be taken, and some of them maybe are wrong. You shouldn't be afraid of that, but you have to take them decision. You have to move forward and fast in this space, right?
Definitely. And where did you learn those skills? Is it just trial and error over your career, or did you make a point to know how to dive in and out of different situations and different conversations, different contexts?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's. I mean, some of it is maybe just like some. I guess capability, some technical understanding, maybe that you just have to some extent, right?
Okay.
On the other hand, I mean, at IBM, I was leading a number of like research projects with participants from all over Europe, where I could sort of learn some of that, at least, dealing. I mean, probably more the people aspect of it, right? I mean, they have a lot of people who want to do maybe pull in different directions, and you have to get them, on the same page and all of that. I think that definitely I learned there. The context switch, maybe it's just something I'm good at. I think a lot of people actually hate that like hell. I don't mind. I actually sort of enjoy it, right? Sort of you solve this problem, and you go there, solve this problem. But a lot of people find that is very tiring. I mean, other things I had to learn was like manage stress and make sure you have time for recovery. I think that I have really learned over my career. I think probably even many times again and again. Go for a run in the morning, and then sometimes you say, I don't have time today, and then you don't do it, and then realize, oh, now I did ignore my recovery, and then it takes a while to get out of that. I mean, work-life balance is another thing, right? I mean, I got divorced from my first family, so sort of, I guess, I learned that the hard way, how to balance that, right? It's a hard balance, right? If you work a lot, in particular even on the startup, but you also have a family that needs to be taken care of. There's a lot of things to learn, and some of these things I also try to tell all my friends, my coworkers, like watch out for these things. Don't do the mistakes I did.
Yeah, I think the work-life balance side of things is it's a tough thing to get right, especially when you're in a startup, building something that has never been built before, trying to grow the team, trying to grow the startup, trying to solve unique challenges, whilst then also trying to have a home life as well. I think that's tricky. I think probably something that a lot of people struggle with, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's really tricky, and it's I think of course now like with your mobile phones and all of that, right? I think good old days, you left the office and it was all paper and it was only so much
Yeah.
paper you could carry home, and now like you have your phone, you're online 24/7, and people, and sometimes also people, you need to respond, and people think you respond. So I think it's hard to find that balance. Uh, and like I think it's sort of managed, but I don't think I have like a recipe that you can just say. I think it's just, I mean, you have to at some point just say, okay, now I go for a run, or now this time is with my family.
So Jan, could you introduce us to DFinity in a little bit more detail, please?
Sure. The DFinity is like a Swiss foundation. We have about 250 people. The majority of them like working in Zurich. We have an office in Zurich, downtown Zurich. Then we have an office in San Francisco, a few people working there, and the rest of the people are like all over the world. I mean, mostly Europe and US, so some West Coast, some Middle US, England, Germany, and then some people like all over the place, like a few here and there.
Nice. And what does it?
Uh,
Sorry, go on.
yeah, sure. Well, I think it's probably the biggest or the highest quality R&D team in the industry. We have like a ton of, I mean, very brilliant cryptographers, computer scientists, top-notch engineer, and like I think everybody, like honestly says, well, this is the highest caliber team I've ever worked with.
Well,
If we have like projects that work on top of the internet computer, which the DFinity Foundation contributes to, or the mission is to build this internet computer. So if we have visitors, they're always like so surprised, like the quality of the people we have.
great.
Of course, I'm very proud of that. That having such a team is very rewarding. When you discuss with like so many smart people, there's hardly anything better you can imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very rewarding.
Do you have to say that because you've hired all your friends who you worked with before?
Totally. No, I think it's really true, right? I mean, I would say so if I wasn't convinced of it, and that's something we hear like all the time. We do this like called ICP labs, where we invite teams that develop on top of the internet computer just to discuss their project, to help them build, to help them solve some of those problems. And the one answer that's really consistent is just, wow, we're so amazed of this quality team.
That's great. Sounds like a brilliant place to be. So what does it take to
It
work
is
at a
tough.
business like DFinity then?
Yeah, I guess you have to be brilliant to fit in here.
What does that mean?
I'm sort of I'm sort of off serious about it. No, I think like it is a highly technical project, right? A lot of complexity. It's cutting edge cryptography, cutting edge computer science, cutting edge engineering. And so I think that is very demanding, right? Most of the people working here have PhDs in computer science, mathematics. And so there's a lot of complexity. I mean, if you're just out of like grad school, I mean, you have a very hard time. So you have like a lot of like senior people working here who have a lot of experience. I think that's really what it takes. I mean, sometimes we hire like some young, brilliant people as well. That can happen, but I think mostly it is senior people that we hire that can work on that. You have to have some. Yeah, you have to be able to deal with the complexity. You have to be very resilient, right? It's a startup. It's sometimes like you have, if there's a bug or something, I mean, it's a live network, and if something happens, you need to get up in the middle of the night. There's a lot of stress there as well, so you need to cope with that. So I think you have to be both feet on the ground and like a smart head.
Wow. So for people who aren't familiar with ICP, how does ICP differ to other blockchains that are out there?
I think it differs in many ways. I mean, I sort of alluded to that before. Like, we really designed a distributed replicated system bottom up. So in some sense, you can think about it. It's like the internet, right? Where you connect machines and then they work together. Now, in the internet computers case, it's like every machine is replicated to make it secure. Mm-hmm. It's really like you build a computer from scratch, but make it secure, fault tolerant, and resilient. So that's very much different. And now, of course, in some sense, if you say like a blockchain, the building paradigm always was, replicated to make it more secure. But if you want to really make sure that's efficient, it scales, you can just add more capacity by adding more computers. You can't do that with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, if you add more miners, it just gets more expensive, but it doesn't become useful. If you add more proof of stake nodes to Ethereum, again, it only becomes more expensive. It doesn't become faster or anything like that. Whereas for the internet computer, if you add more nodes, and actually those nodes form like what we call subnets, and then actually they add useful work, they add capacity. So it's very much like the internet, where you just add more computers, they have more, like more content, more websites, more services. And the internet computer is really like that. Also different from other blockchains, like they actually here, like smart contracts, they can have their own public keys, they can own crypto from other blockchains, they can own Bitcoin, they can talk to like Web2, like other machines. So in some sense, it's really very much like a computer that you have on your desk, just like built by blockchain technology.
Wow. And why create something new like ICP?
Well, I mean, because like the existing blockchains really don't fulfill this vision of a world computer, right? So you want to have like a computer that's a common good. If you want it, you want to make sure that software like smart contracts can run forever. They're just there, scale automatically, and all of that. So it's like, if you want, it's like a cloud, like a crypto cloud, right? So like Amazon, but built from blockchain, because Amazon is a single party control. It's a monopoly. Google Cloud is the same. A world computer is this cloud that's just there, and everybody can use it. There's like no, it's like jointly controlled. It's like a community good. It's like the roads, right? People build roads so other people can drive cars on that. So we contribute and help build the world computer, the internet computer, so that other people then can build software service on top of that. So it's like this. I think it's back to the roots of the internet, right? The original internet was really TCP/IP was a protocol. Everybody can hook up their computers and contribute. So that was like really a game changer, right? And it's a thriving economy. And then now what happens that then sort of these cloud services come up, but that's like big monopolies who control that, and that is problematic, right? And so now within the computer, if you have again compute like cloud, if you want crypto cloud, so compute capabilities, again as a network, as an open network, again you can have back this innovation, thriving innovation that you had with the early internet. So you can have services that are controlled by the community, that are open, right? And so like something like WhatsApp being bought by Facebook and then being controlled by Facebook can't happen on an open network. I mean, if you build it properly, right? But I think that's like the Web3 kind of thing, right? Where you have applications that are owned by the user, controlled by the users. And you cannot do that on Google Cloud, right? Because then Google Cloud owns it, or somebody has to have the contract to pay the bills. If you have that on a network like the internet computer, actually you can do it, right? It's the only place where you can build like community, like Web3 owned stuff. And I think that's really why we're doing this, because so far no other blockchain can do that, right? If people say this is built on blockchain X, what they really mean is they host a lot of stuff on I don't know, AWS or some other cloud, right? And then they call out with some, something like Infura or so to blockchain, have some tokens there, go back to the cloud. But it's not, it's not Web3, right? Because there's always somebody who, pays the bill to Amazon. It's not, and if that person goes away, if that credit card expires, the service stops, right? So it's not truly owned by the user. So all the users are still at the whim of like some parties, and that's like a failure, right? So I mean, a failure is like a single point of failure, and so you really want to have like an infrastructure network that's just there that people can use, and then can build like an open community-based economy.
Oh, that's interesting. And what was it like in the early days of building a project like ICP? I know you'd probably still class it as early days, but when you're initially starting out and looking to build something like this?
Yeah, I totally still class it as early days. Now the internet computer is up and running since 2 years. We have some projects that build on it, like OpenChat, District, Discover, so on. But a lot of stuff is still coming, right? I mean, we have like exchanges that are still building. But of course, it was a huge difference before and after launch, right? It's like the early days, my first year at DFinity was still very much okay. Like, let's build this world computer. Okay, so here we have the components. Thinking about how you would build that. Thinking about if you have have a protocol in place that runs. Protocol means, of course, software that runs on this node. Now, if there's a bug, how can you fix it? Because now you have a decentralized autonomous system. How can it repair itself? So you think about this like hard computer science problems very much, and probably mostly. And then when you go towards launch, you think about, okay, so now what really does it take to launch? Do we have all the pieces in place that it can, that it's ready, that it runs autonomously? And then when when the network is live, and suddenly life is different, right? Because now you have a running product, and you need to, well, first of all, it's a decentralized system, right? So you need to, you have a community that runs it together, and if there is bugs that need to be fixed, you fix the bugs, then you propose the fix to the system adopts it, and then autonomously updates to the next version. And that's also really different from at the inner computer, right? But what other blockchains would call hard forks, the inner computer does like twice, 3 times a week. Okay. And just like that, right? I mean, it's like a proposal, the governance system, the ICP holders vote on it, gets adopted, done, right? And so it's very, very different. And initially, you just start mostly solving these hard problems, implementing that, and later on, certainly you're working in a community that together maintains that, and gradually go up the stack, right? I mean, first protocol, then certainly you need to think about how can you enable projects to build on top of it, developer tools, all of that. In some sense, it's the typical, I guess, startup thing where you like reinvent yourself, like maybe not every week, but every quarter for sure.
And looking back, is there anything you do differently, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, anything else would be stupid, right? You don't want to. I mean, it's natural. You make a mistake. You take decisions that you would take differently given the knowledge you have in hindsight. But like it is what it is. You need to take decisions, and sometimes they're wrong, and you have to live with it, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we were in some sense. We were also naive. We would just build the technology and then only later realized that actually, like attacks in this space are not, or maybe no longer based on technology. They're more on market forces, market manipulation, corruption in the I think that's sort of the what I hadn't expected. I mean, I sort of knew that Bitcoin whales manipulate the markets, right? So that there's dumps and pump and dump kind of thing. It's totally going on. And I mean, unfortunately, the internet computer was hit very hard by that. I mean, I guess by now it is known that FTX had sort of made a futures of ICP and pumped it very hard just hours before the launch and dumped it very hard later on. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this almost killed the project, right? And like at DFinity, we were totally unprepared to deal with that. We did not expect something like that to happen, right? And I mean, of course, now that's something. Knowing about that, of course, we could have prepared better and be ready for it. But I mean, again, it is what it is, right? Yeah. Here we are. We survived it. We were still alive and kicking, and you can always ask yourself, well, what should I have done differently? You should learn from it, but you can't change it either, right? So you got to live with it.
Definitely. And is there a number of challenges that stand out to you that you faced that potentially others could learn from? So is there anything that comes to mind where you think, actually, you know what, I could have handled this like this, or anything like that springs to mind?
I think it's really hard to say, right? Because I mean, on the one hand, probably be more aware about your environment and sort of realizing that there's more than tech out there, right? There's a lot of, and most people don't understand technology very deeply. So most people like worry more about the maybe business market kind of levels. And I guess we as an organization are very technical, and so if there's one thing maybe that we should have done different and will do different in the future is really like considering the markets, the environment differently at different levels.
Fair enough. So how do you go about building a successful technology organization in Web3?
Well, I think it really depends what you mean by Web3, right? Because Web3 has many levels, right? So it's the level like we are working at DFinity, like the protocol level. But I think at the end of the world only needs so many blockchains, right? So many protocols. It's like honestly, there's like too many already, and I guess like in 10 years' time, only a few will be still around, and that makes total sense, right? You don't need 7 internet. You need 1 internet that's working.
Yeah,
I think that's the same for blockchain. Of course, I mean there could be like different chains, right? I mean also on the internet you have different kinds of servers. You have like IoT devices that connect to it. You have big supercomputers that connect to it. Yes, you can also have like something similar in the blockchain space where you have like a few. Maybe a handful, maybe a dozen blockchains that sort of work together that have somewhat different properties. Bitcoin being digital gold. Well, I'm not sure whether I want it to be around with all the energy waste. But I mean, I guess my point is more like Bitcoin is sort of this has a very specific purpose, like being this kind of currency, and then you have other blockchains that are maybe like the internet computers that are very fast, scale, efficient, and so on. And you can say, well, of course they should work together. That's also like why the internet computer integrates natively with Bitcoin, so smart contracts can hold Bitcoin, and currently work is undergoing. Smart contracts can interact also with the Ethereum blockchain, stuff of that, right? So I think that will definitely happen.
Great.
But I guess, I'm sort of avoiding your question. So I think there's this protocol level, right? And then there is the, I guess the next level for Web3 is, of course, developer tools. And then the last level is really applications on top of that, right? And I think for each of those areas, the answer is very different, right? So at the blockchain layer, you have to have different skills. You have to get different people together than when you do like an application, right? Like whatever. I mean, I've mentioned a few. Hot or Not is another one. Just where like a team of 4 people could already do a huge thing, right? And maybe of course at some point they have to grow, but it's different, right? Wherever you work about, I want to do these Web3 apps. I have users. I want to have then it's usability, contents that matters, tokenomics. How do I engage with the user? How can users contribute? So it really depends, right? And I think that there I mean, it's for all of them, you have to have a good business plan. You have to good tech.
And if
yeah, I think.
And if you're talking to a leader who is stepping into a leadership role for the first time, and maybe they are going to have the responsibility of scaling, growing a team, and building a new project, what advice could you share with that person?
Well, I think you should always do what is your passion, right? You have to be passionate of what you're doing, and you have to be also honest to yourself. Are you good at it, right? I mean, even if you're passionate, but you're passionate about something you totally suck at, maybe that's not the right thing. Yeah, and so because if you lead the team, not only have to have a passion for the area you're working in, you have to sort of master that area, but then also you have to be able to be, I guess, a role model, be care for the people you're working with, have be responsible for them. Also, I mean, letting them grow as well. I mean, in some sense, it's like raising kids, because raising kids tells you a lot, right? I mean, first of all, you support them, but also you have to get them to be independent, because otherwise, honestly, you wipe their asses all life. You don't want to do that, right? I mean, like 3 years is good enough. Yeah. And it's the same kind of thing, right? You have to, if you grow a team, you have to grow them as persons, give them more responsibility, help them take that responsibility. A lot of coaching there. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about passion. You have to get your passion across. You have to motivate them. And if you're not motivated and passionate yourself, you cannot lead a team either.
No, I agree. Especially agree when it comes to helping the team members grow and giving them more responsibility. I think that was when I stepped into a management role for the first time. That was one of my key learns. I had to learn it it was a steep learning curve, put it that way, for kind of giving up ownership and giving people responsibility and trusting the people to deliver as well as I thought I could. So yeah, that whole kind of ownership and stuff is something that it's a tricky thing to give up. I think when you're not used to it, or when you're stepping into it for the first time,
it can be very frustrating, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but, you could have done it much quicker, much better, but it doesn't scale, right? So you have to empower people that they can actually do it.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any advice that you wish you would have been told earlier in your career that you can share?
I was thinking about that question quite a bit, but I don't know. Maybe not really. I guess maybe more for my private life. Kind of getting a babysitter more often. This kind of thing. Sort of, I mean, as I told you, right? I got divorced. And I think that was like a big hiccup in my life. Really hurt a lot. And so I guess whenever I talk to people about their personal lives, I always tell them, look, make sure your personal life is in order. You support it too, and you have some quality couple time if you have kids, because otherwise you can't be successful in business, in work life, if you're not successful in your private life. It's very well. I mean, it's very connected, and ignoring that doesn't help. Yeah. And a lot of people do that, right? I mean, just okay, it's fine, like now it's a hard time. We have to go through that, but actually, you have to take care of yourself. You can't take care of other people at work, nor at home, if you don't take care of yourself and your family.
No, I agree. That's good advice. And if someone was stepping into Web3 for the first time, anything they should know about the industry, any expectations? How do they set themselves up for success?
I mean, it is like an emerging area, right? So there's like a lot of changes going on. A lot of things are still not figured out, right? I mean, There's a ton of legal questions that are not fully figured out. That's always like how technology is, right? I mean, before the regulatory framework catches up as technology always moves much faster. And I think you have to be like open-minded. You have to be explorative. You have to be able to try new things. You must not be afraid to fail. I mean, but learn from failure, get up and do it again, do it a second time. Maybe only the first time will be successful. And even in emerging things, it's much more like that. You just have to try out, be resilient, never give up, but again, be passionate and do what you love and love what you do.
No, I love that. Brilliant advice. Well, yeah, Jan, thank you very much for joining me today. You shared some brilliant insight. It was great to learn about your journey, great to learn about DFinity and ICP in more detail. If people people listening to this want to reach out to you, they want to drop you a question, they might have a question about something we might have spoken about today, are they okay to drop you a message on LinkedIn, or is it message you on Twitter, follow you on Twitter? Where can someone reach you?
Something like that. I think it's very hard. Like email probably doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Maybe LinkedIn and Twitter might. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I mean, if people reach out and I don't answer the first time, I will the second or third time. So just try again.
Yeah, sure. I think it took me 10 times probably of sending you messages before you answered me. So perseverance.
There you go. But I enjoyed it a lot. So thanks for being resilient and making it happen nevertheless.
No problem. Well, yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks. Bye bye, Jack.